Recreation Commission meeting of Thursday, February 9th, 2023. Would you all please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brakes are on. They're working, Brent?
I don't know. I don't think so in the room.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't sound like it.
Oh, I guess not.
All those people that are watching.
Nobody
The
heard
only
the
switch
pledge.
I know is on, so.
Is Bob still in there?
Now they're off. Try to...
Yeah.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Not sure if these are working.
I can never hear ourselves talking.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is anybody from BCAT, you think, in the building?
Thanks to Joe.
How about
My
now?
mother was the only one that watched.
Testing, there we
There
go.
you go.
All right, very good. Okay, once again, welcome everyone to the Recreation Commission meeting of Thursday, February, what's today's date? The 9th, 2023. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to move on with our agenda. But before we do that, I'd like to ask everyone here and at home to take a moment of silence. We heard some sad news this week that Paul Raymond's wife, Jane Raymond, passed away. And I think we should all recognize all of the contributions that that family has made and sacrifices that they've made over the years. And so please join me in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you all very much. Now we're going to move on to approval of the minutes of January 18th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Mr. Foss to approve the minutes of January 18th, 2023. Are there any comments? Oh, Bill, I'm sorry.
You sound like.
Any comments or questions on the minutes? Seeing none, we will put the motion to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, that's unanimous.
I'll abstain.
All
I wasn't-
right, 401. You can still vote on the motion.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, that's.
I've never missed a meeting before, so.
Next time, all right. The vote's already in, but next time you can do it, according to town council. Okay, next item on our agenda is public participation. I do not see anyone here this evening for public participation, and we're not doing any remotes any longer. So we'll move on to the Director of Parks and Recreation report. Director Reed.
thank you. These do seem, I don't know, doesn't seem like it's on, but we'll go. January town meeting, just a quick update, was on January 30th, and both the BMEA and the AMP contracts were approved, and that will be reflected, or is reflected, in the FY24 budget that you received. Town meeting also postponed a vote on the electronic sign that we had discussed the week prior. Until more information could be gathered. So, the public schools, we had talked about the master field plan, that the school sports field plan that the school district had gone to town meeting for last year. I recently met with the athletic director and director of operations to review the first draft of the sports field master plan. The draft consisted of existing conditions, schematic designs, cost estimates, recommendations for fields that are used by the athletic department. It did not include all athletic fields. There were some in our parks that were not included, and during our meeting I did ask that those are included, and they will be included in the next draft. We are going to be meeting, we haven't set a date yet, to discuss the plan with someone from the company that did the draft and look at adding things that need to be added in. There's lots of pictures, current or existing condition pictures. Some of those could be, shrunk down to fit a little better. It was like a 380 something page document. Some of those things we'll work on that and narrow that down and get a little more comprehensive plan that's a little in a better package, I think, that's easier to read for people. But that is out there now, and I will keep you abreast of any changes with that. Next item I have, I had mentioned in my report that our annual report was done. It got put on the side burner. It's 99.9% I have to go through for punctuation. I apologize, and we'll talk about it when we get to the budget as to why I got waylaid with that, and that got put to the side. But I will say that, our report's going to talk about, this past 2022, in that we saw, a return to almost pre-pandemic participation numbers. We had a full complement of special events. We completed a number of maintenance projects, including the renovation of the 2 Little League fields for the tournament, the basketball courts at Simons Park. We created a cricket pitch at Miter. The maintenance division also worked on site prep for some batting cages over at Francis Wyman. We had some movement among staff, some promotions, some new hires. So overall, we had another successful year. It was good to see numbers, but when you get that report, you'll see exactly all of the changes and improvements, and of course, talked about pickleball in there, and the treehouse at Simons Park as well. So all of those things were mentioned in there. And again, I apologize for not getting you that report, as I mentioned in this report. The next item, so know we're going to be talking about the budget, but one other item before we get into the budget is our capital requests. We have been working on those. We had another meeting this week where we were narrowing down and getting final prices for maintenance projects, as well as we're working on a couple on the program side, program division, and we should have those for our last meeting of the month. We did learn that the accessible van that we had put in FY '22, they had put a hold on producing the vans. They weren't producing the vans or many vehicles at the time during the pandemic with the chip shortage. And since they've started up, they're not producing a ton of the vans, and we have since learned that an official order was never put in for a van. So we do have that being ordered now, but we do have also a $20,000 increase in the price of the van from '22 to now. So we may be adding that to our request for this year, additional amount, unless conversations with the finance department, we can find some monies maybe at the end of the year, so we don't have to ask. There may be, some left, or they can identify a source, but we're looking at about a $20,000 difference between what we have requested and gotten the quote for in FY '22, now that they are producing them, not a lot of them. From what we've been told, there is a $20,000 difference, so we will have to seek those funds, the difference.
Any questions for Director Egan on his report?
Just one, that comes from the state bid list, right?
Yep, everything comes through. There's a couple different groups that do vehicles, and it's all off state bid list. There's MHQ, which we're not apparently going to be going with anymore. I think they've had a hard time, from what I understand, getting vehicles. They've lost some staff. So there's another group out there, Colonial Motor Group, CMG, which is down in the Randolph area maybe, and they're who we're working with now. So, and we go through central maintenance for that. They do a lot of the procurement of the vehicles.
Any other questions on the van? I would just suggest, Brendan, that we put in a warrant article for the additional funds. We can always withdraw it if we find something later on.
We'll have that full discussion at our February 27th meeting, if that date is still good for everybody.
Okay.
That's all I have until we get to new and old business.
Okay, the next item then on our agenda is the Park Superintendent Report. Mr. Baker.
Okay. We've had some luck with the weather and with our bucket truck so far this winter, and we've been able to finish taking down all the holiday lights from the common and the surrounding areas. We did have a couple small snowstorms that we spent a couple of days cleaning up after. We assist the DPW on streets during the storm in the center of town, and when the storm slows, they assist us in clearing the schools. After that, when the storm ends, the next day or so, we're taking care of the parks and everything else that was remaining. The painting and repairing of our picnic tables from the parks and schools has been completed. We're starting to bring in and paint barrels from the parks and schools that need it. We're continuing to service all of our large and small equipment. Currently, we're working on the large mowers and the zero-turn mowers. We repaired a large section of fence at Mary Cummings Park. A car drove through it and flattened it pretty much, and we got that back in shape. The maintenance crew did some work on the grounds between the fire station and annex. They removed some shrubs, limbed a couple trees, and completely removed a tree. Some damaged shrubs were also removed from the islands on either side of the entrance of the swim and tennis club. We've been researching and pricing equipment and trucks for our department for fiscal '24 and beyond, and we've been keeping up with our trash and recycling at all of our parks, schools, and town buildings.
Very good, thank you. Any questions on Bill's report? Okay, we're moving right along tonight. Programming report.
We don't have one.
Who's
We
gonna do
don't-
that?
We don't have a programming
Our assistant
report.
director is not doing it. It's still on our agenda.
Correct.
So I'm assuming that we're not having any programming report this evening. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Chairman's report, Kevin.
Do you want to give the assistant director the opportunity to share anything?
It's under new business.
Okay.
Okay. I have nothing to report under the item of chairman's report this evening, so we'll move on. Anyone have any subcommittee reports? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Gaffney.
just real quick, from the planning board standpoint, we approved a number of new businesses coming in, and they've, one's currently opening tomorrow, Mum's Organic, right down at Crossroads, and the other one was the new sub shop. It's the name, it's over on Middlesex Turnpike. I should think of the name, but both of
Oh, is
those
it Mike's?
companies, when they came before us, Jersey Mike's.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Jersey Mike's, yeah.
Both of those companies, when they came before approvals for the planning board, they did indicate that they were interested in working with the community on, programs, so maybe now that they're open, we can engage those folks. Seem like they're both great companies to work for that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That's for Kelly. All right, moving on to new business. Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation.
Came right around.
All yours,
It's
Kelly.
really quick. Thank you. The first thing we're going to talk about is, as you guys know, our therapeutic rec specialist, Emma Jones, was named top 30 under 30 by the National Park and Recreation Association. She was selected from over 100 nominees in 28 different states across the nation. And the top 30 under 30 honors young park and recreation professionals who are serving their community in really amazing ways. we've shared the article online. You guys all received the article. Reading some of the impact that these young professionals have made within our profession is amazing. And Emma is very excited to be among them. So we are excited that we get to work with Emma every day. And now the nation knows how great Emma is doing and what an impact she's making here in Burlington. So we want to congratulate her for sure. She's doing great work, and the impact really is felt here. So as far as programming is concerned, the program staff is currently working on the spring 2023 brochure that should be released at the end of February, maybe right around the next commission meeting date time. And residents can look forward to an early March registration. Once the brochure is completed, it'll be available online, and a registration date will be announced publicly. People can also come into our office or give us a call if they would like a printed version. We've been mailing them out to people, or if people stop by because they want the hard copy, they can certainly come in and do that. Full disclosure, it's a copy off of our copy machine. It's not the full glossy cover, but it's some people still want to have it in hand to highlight and kind of go through. So, and therapeutic recreation. February is Therapeutic Recreation Month, so we do celebrate Therapeutic Recreation Month with a few social media campaigns highlighting some of our staff, Emma included. And this year's theme, as selected by the American Therapeutic Recreation Association, or ATRA, is Find Your Place. And ATRA encourages all recreation therapists to find their place in the community by providing accessible programs and events throughout the month. We will be highlighting several things. We have so far launched Fun Fact Friday, where we talk about TR and what it is and how it impacts the community. And we've also done TR Staff Tuesday, where we highlight some of our staff and just kind of give a little background. And it's been really well received. But keep an eye on our social media platforms, because we will be doing some more initiatives to be able to highlight TR and how important it is, and what kind of impact it really does make here in Burlington. Additionally, on Monday, January 23rd, Emma and I met with the Disability Access Commission. First, to thank them for their support in 2022. They generously donated $10,000 for programming efforts last year. This year, they approved a total of $13,000 to support some TR programming efforts, including Cooking and Connections and therapeutic horseback riding and our annual sneaker prom event. And this year, they also gave some additional funds to be able to support the clubhouse at Simon's during the summer. They really are an amazing partner for us as far as our therapeutic recreation division is concerned. They're very supportive and always looking to, maybe provide an extra boost that a new program might need to be able to get started, or, to keep those costs of programming on the same level as our typical programming is concerned, because cost is often a barrier for families who have participants or family members with disabilities, right? So we want to keep those costs the same as our neurotypical programming is concerned. And then special events, we have the Special Summon Soiree, which is formerly our Daddy-Daughter Dance. It'll be held tomorrow night at the Hilton Boston Woburn from 6 to 8. We're excited. We'll have some dancing, some flowers, some snacks, and it should be a really great event. So we are excited to be offering that once again this year.
Excellent. All good news. Anyone have any questions or comments for Kelly?
How many people went to the daddy-daughter dance?
Is there an age limit?
Historically. Yeah. Was it in the spring more years ago?
It used to be held in June, but for the last year it was held in June because of COVID restrictions and whatnot. But probably for the last 4 or 5 years pre-COVID, we held it in February, right around Valentine's Day.
Oh,
June's a busy month for people, right, with graduations and
makes
other
sense.
things going on.
I just remember the roof being down as we drove.
Yep.
That wouldn't have been February.
To the middle school gym, right?
Right.
With a square dance collar. Yep.
You've come a long way.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kelly.
I would just like to,
David.
just real quick, say another special thing about Emma. Our therapeutic program has only grown unbelievably in the last 5 years, and she's done an unbelievable job. And, you know, to win that award is awesome. And I think that therapeutic is only going to get more and more bigger in this community. So to have someone like you and Emma in charge of that program is good for the town of Burlington. And I love the job that she's doing. So congratulations to her.
We will certainly pass that along to her. Thanks, Dave.
Well said, Dave. I think we're all proud of her. That was great news. Are we ready to move on? Any other questions or comments from Kelly? Okay. All right. The big item tonight is our FY24 budget discussion and vote. Director Egan.
Okay, thank you. Everyone received the FY '24 budget last week. Had a chance to go through it. There were the guidelines we were given was a level services budget to go along with the contractual obligations, the new contracts that were approved at town meeting. And, you know, we are a service-oriented department and responsible for maintenance and upkeep of outdoor facilities, athletic fields, parks, and playgrounds, municipal buildings, all of that. And we're also responsible for providing high-quality recreation programs and events. So our challenge was keeping the level service budget, you know, in without going too high of an increase. We did have an increase of 5.77%. This was over last year's budget. With the new contracts that were coming in at, you know, 4% in that range, a little more. You know, the remaining increase that we had in this budget reflected increases that we had to do for occupancy, so electricity, gas, oil, gasoline for vehicles, as well as heating gas. And then also, the cost of materials and supplies has gone up, so our fertilizers, our grass seeds, field paint, chalk, lime for field, plus increases which we were able to weather last year for playground fiber, mulch for the beds around the town buildings, as well as clay infield mix and clay for the infields. So taking all that into account, we did come up with a 5.77% overall increase. We did increase overtime, our part-time salaries. All of our full-time salaries were increased due to the contractual obligations, and those do trickle down into the part-time as well. We have, you'll see the major drivers here. We have an 18%, we had an 18% increase in overtime. We had 3%, just under 3% increase in occupancy. We had, in materials and supplies, we had a 17% increase. We had a 20% increase in melt. It seems like a lot, but it's really only $3,000 there. And then we had another, looks like a giant one, 37.5% increase in capital outlay, and that was really only a $3,000 increase, but in that line, it looks like a huge increase. So, sent this off. We had gone through it. I mentioned there's increases in part-time as well. And then this week, once they looked over all the departments' budgets, they asked for departments to take a deeper look at their budget and see if there was additional savings that they could find. The town wanted to increase the pay for full-time staff accordingly across the board so that they came more in line with communities around us that have surpassed us in salaries. So with that, with their generous increase in salaries, they were hoping that the town budgets would really stay pretty level, not just services, but the actual budget themselves. So they've asked all the town departments to come in, take another look at their budget. So I've spent the last few days combing through the budget along with Kelly, trying to identify areas where we could maybe see some increases, but not as big as we had hoped for. So we do have another budget to look at, and we can identify the areas where we did have, where we did make some cuts. And so, you know, we have a 5.77% budget that you all received. And then, as we were asked this week to make some additional cuts to our budget, we were able to get down to a 4.1% increase. So I would like to pass those out, and we can go through it and ask questions, and I'll identify the areas where we were able to make some changes. The idea is that this is a 1 year, you know, as the contractual obligations take a big hit in the budget, that it's a 1 year. Next year, you know, we can start to add in those increases that we wanted to do this year. And the goal is a 3.75% blended budget across the schools and the town. First look at all the budgets, they were well over that blended number from the town side. You know, the town wants to come in at 3.75, they want the schools to come in at 3.75. So I know department heads spent some time. It's a little easier for smaller departments, a little harder for departments like ours that are, you know, we are service oriented, and you know, there are definitely some increases in cost that, you know, we can't cut. But so I have I guess you could call it a B budget here, and this was completed as late as this afternoon. By the time we went back and forth and checked in with Town Hall to see, you know, if we were in the ballpark. We did make some cuts, and I'd like to share that with you there. So you will see that this increase is 4.1%, and we can I'll go through the areas where there were some decreases from the 5.77 budget. Everyone has it. If we start on the front page, summary page, we did have sorry, I want to make sure I have the right one in front of me. We did have a decrease in the part-time, and a lot of that, all of it almost, was on the programming side. We did reduce the number of hours a week for a marketing coordinator position. It's a vital position, especially year-round, but especially in the summer, with the amount of programs, events, and things going on. We rely on that marketing person. Our full-time staff doesn't always have the time to update social media as needed. People rely on our social media for the most up-to-date information. They rely on it for when the brochure is going to be printed, when events are canceled, when there's changes in anything, and just general department information. We also had, we removed middle school parks was set up for 2 tracks, and we reduced the assistant directors in that program. And the subsidy, so we subsidize that program. The participants pay 50% of it, and the town picks up the other 50% for the salaries. I'm sorry, it was 60/40, it's down to 50/50. So the residents pay a little bit more for the program this year in order to, again, make adjustments to our overall budget. And then we also reduced the salary for the summer program administrator position. That's a, correct me, is it 12 weeks? The summer program? 10 weeks. And we've had, a person that's worked for us for a long time in that position. We're not sure if they're coming back, but we did make an adjustment there. So in our part-time on the program side, we also saw the number of weeks reduced in our therapeutic recreation programming. So instead of offering the program for 34 weeks, we're down to 30 weeks. So there was a cut there. So these are all part-time salary cuts that were something that we can weather possibly for a year. It's going to be hard at times, especially with the therapeutic rec programming. I know Dave mentioned it earlier, but it's a growing segment. It's a growing division in our department that, we're getting, those numbers have risen to pre-pandemic numbers as well, where the population wasn't necessarily coming to programs, they weren't feeling comfortable, but they're back into a regular routine. So these, that's one area that will be affected, that we're gonna have to, do our best to make sure that we're reaching all of the participants and, that they're able to participate in as many programs as they would like to, and that we're offering enough to keep those participants busy and engaged. The other areas in here, in our MELT, so we'll go to the, under the Recreation Director portion of the budget. The MELT, we did have a slight increase there. We would like to have increased that more to be able to cover the cost of at least one of our staff to go to the national conference. But we were only able to increase it a little, and a lot of that is due to the cost of membership for the National Recreation Park Association. And then there's a small amount in there to cover basically what comes out to half of a registration fee for the national conference. So that is in the MELT under the Recreation Director portion of the budget. And then we did cut out the transportation for the Spectacular Saturdays program. We had some money in there in case we had to get a bus for any of the trips. We were hoping to have that van by now. That's obviously not going to happen, but we've had good luck with Burlington Youth and Family Services in the use of their van, but we still may have to, add a van or a bus at some point during the year, and we'll have to make that work out of revolving. Is there anything you wanted to add on these before I move? No? Okay. Then as we get to the maintenance, the recreation maintenance portion of the budget, we did have an increase in overtime. It wasn't as large as we had hoped. It does take into consideration the new rates per the contract, but you will see that is a 4.5%, and that was reduced from the larger 18%. We're just going to have to be really good about our use of overtime. It still is an increase over the prior year. And then the other item there you go to the last page, we have our list of materials and supplies and our expense page here. And we had a line in the, nope, sorry, the second one. Second one, I can't read it. Contracted service, sorry. Where we had a line in there for asphalt repair and things like that. We were, haven't done a lot of that. We've been able to cover in other portions of the budget. So, what we did, we haven't needed it because a lot of our parking lots have been, repaved in the last few years as well. So, we were gonna, we rent a dumpster in the summer, when, at certain points for events or for when we're running out of space in all the school dumpsters. We have to rent one to handle the overflow. So we had added in $1,200 for dumpster rentals this year. We took that out. And then our capital outlay, we did level fund that from years prior. So we didn't increase that at all. And then lastly, we did increase the fuel. We've been able to get by the last few years, but now increasing gas prices, even though they have come down from their high last fall, we do have to increase our costs for fuel as well. So with all of those changes, that gets us to, as I mentioned, a 4.1% increase. So it's a significant drop from the 5.77 that we had first proposed. And I'm sorry to throw that out there tonight. I hit the areas that we did make some reductions in. Some we still had increases in, they just weren't as big as we had hoped for. This has taken up most of our week, working with the numbers, trying to find that sweet spot where we didn't lose services. We maybe had to reduce what we're able to spend on those services, which we ultimately reduced services. And looking at areas where, can we tighten the purse strings a little this year? Yes, with the idea that we'll be able to increase those back to the necessary levels next year.
Okay, thank you, Brennan. Questions on the budget? Kevin?
So, what do we need to fight for to go back to level service? There's 6,000 in part-time. If we put that back in, because we're not giving level service if we don't use that part-time money. So we're not doing the mandate there. Is this your final, and you're happy with this, or is this something that we can work on more?
I have a meeting next Thursday to discuss it. I think their goal is to get departments all down to 375. Some departments are going to wind up with an increase, $2,000, which comes out to like a 9% increase for them, but their budgets aren't that big. I think adding in, some additional money into the part-time for some of those programs would probably be, especially with therapeutic recreation, would be something we would consider. We presented a budget that tonight, this additional 4.1 budget that, stretches things for us. So, but, trying to be the team player with the other departments, finding areas that, yes, we're stretching. We can potentially get through a year with it, but we can't continue that way. They have to see increases next year in order to keep our head above water, so to speak. So, Kelly, was there anything specific in there, or Kevin, are you asking to add 6,000 back in to the part-time budget altogether?
Through the chair?
Kevin?
Yeah, like, can we, on Melt, take away the national convention half and put that into part-time? And is there any other places that we can, that would cut it down by some and go up on part-time so that we're equal services?
All right.
And
So I just wanted, you say, asking to remove the National Park and Recreation Association Conference money that we had in there?
yes,
Okay,
In its
And-
entirety? Because that also pays for our membership.
yeah,
oh
it's
no,
our
I'm not,
membership.
I'm
Right.
saying for the trip to,
So we'll go from 1,200 down to 795. So it'd be about, what's that, $400?
that's-
$441? Yeah, it's not a big,
The membership
Big
is the
number.
lion's share of that
it's
number.
$800,
right?
795.
but is there, if we level service things, add to the, part-time, what does that budget go up by?
I don't have a calculator with me. What it would go up if we added that 6,000 back in, we'd probably be looking at 4.2, 4.3, another 4.3, probably 4.2 something, close to 4.3%, so it'll go up.
Through the chair?
You want to make a motion, Kevin, or you
Well,
want
I
to just talk it out?
we can talk it out, I don't wanna change, last year, we added a new employee.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna make our budget go higher. It didn't quite affect us last year because we
We have room, yeah.
had room because we didn't hire that, the program person until now. So we had it didn't hurt as much. This year it's gonna hurt. We hired someone, it seems like our budget's gonna be more in.
Right.
Well-
Well, the position, we were able to work the position in last year because there was room in the full-time budget to be able to handle that, and then we did add a little to that. So, we had retirements and people in new positions making less than who they replaced. So that was in our budget from the beginning. So we started off this year with that in there, in our budget. So it didn't have anything to do with just hiring, in October. It was in the budget already.
If you look at the recreation
part of the base,
director
I think,
side of the budget as well, it's actually showing a decrease in full-time salaries, because of the shifts, in people's responsibilities, shifting from assistant program to program coordinator. That top line of, full-time salaries is actually negative, almost 0.5%. So like, it's not really, the position itself isn't really impacting the budget
The
in that
budget.
way. If we look at adding that $6,000 in, we could potentially look at other places, potentially. We have brought on, a number of software companies in, to manage our staff in different ways and kind of reduce workload and streamline operations a little bit. We could potentially look there for a cut, but that, anywhere we cut is going to just then have to come out of the revolving account to be able to pay for it, right?
Right.
Which is where the balance kind of comes in.
So, we figure between, that we're raising through the revolving account, or what we have to expend to keep going is about 130,000. To special events, scholarships. What are some of our other,
Well,
we,
we pay for the credit card fees out of there, like it's
They
going
all-
to affect the end user, right? Like everything we do affects the end user and the cost of programming. So we can certainly do that and increase costs, but to be able to carry our Bamboo HR software, RecTrack in general, we pay half of that fee out of revolving. Any sort of program-related costs, we at least expend half, if not all, out of the revolving account. Our professional development, which I think has brought a lot to this community and our department as a whole, the lion's share of that comes out of the revolving account. The idea behind putting the national conference in the budget is that it doesn't impact, it's not necessarily specifically related to programs where we're bringing in that revenue. So that was an area we thought we might be able to shift to the budget. Clearly, that's not gonna happen this year, right? But we thought it was an area that is better served through our general fund allocation than it is through the revolving account, because we do try to reserve that for either facility improvements or
program
things that
enhancements.
affect the end user within our programs. Yeah.
Yeah, so can we put RecTrack in revolving completely? It's a cost of offering programs, and would that free up $6,000 or?
Would free up
Yeah,
4,000.
Closer.
I mean, we could do that.
We can do that.
And at some point, you know, and we try to keep our program costs, you know, the program fees low for residents, so that they can get that program in their own community a little cheaper than they would privately, right? But every time we increase small amounts, and we had to over the last 3 years, you know, or we started before the pandemic, and then we started again as we started to move away from the center of the pandemic or the beginning. And we got, you know, some feedback. If you look at it, they're minor costs, $5, $10 at the most. I think the most expensive was $12. And over 10 weeks, it's $1.20 a week. But when people see it that are used to lower prices, so we can do that. That will come in order, you know, if we're not covering our costs out of, you know, for RecTrack, if we put that in completely out of the revolving and we're not covering, we are going to have to increase costs. So, you know, sometimes commissioners get phone calls and, you know, as long as you're ready for that, but a lot of times they just call the office or come in and speak to us, which is fine. And I think once they understand that, you know, it's $1.20 a week, some people it's a lot. Other people is, oh, okay, I see. It's not, you know, going up $12 per week. It's $12 overall increase. So we have to make up that difference somewhere to cover it out of the revolving.
Just to keep it going,
Yeah.
we've had surpluses most years in the revolving, that you've done such a good job that the programs have generated revenue more than it costs to run the program. We can't find $6,000 to set aside out of what we already have, probably.
We could do that, then.
I'm just trying to help
Yeah,
you.
no,
No,
I
it makes
understand.
sense,
But
no.
just, you know, as we find that 6,000, you know, is if we're not getting the same participation in our programs, that drops what we wind up making in that revolving account. And then it's maybe 6,000 less that could go into, I know we spend a lot on fertilizer, field improvements, things like that, as much as we can. It does cut into that. You know, what we would be able to spend on that if, you know, we don't see a continued increase in numbers. More participation in our programs obviously translates into, you know, a surplus. I don't want to say a surplus, so I want to use, not a surplus, I guess surplus.
It's surplus, yeah.
In the revolving account that we then put towards special events, scholarships, athletic field improvements, fertilizers, grass seeds, things like that. So if we're not seeing an increase in the attendance in programs, every time we add something else to the revolving account to pay for out of it, that amount, that surplus shrinks and shrinks, and we don't want to be on the opposite side of that, where we're struggling. So it's a balancing act, and we can do it if that's the desire of the commission to maybe shift that over, the rec track over completely and add back into the budget. So the number stays around the same, the overall budget increase number stays around the same, we can find a way to do that. But there, it's a trickle-down effect, it's gonna affect something else.
Why is that number so big?
David?
The software maintenance contract.
So we're paying for about half of the Vermont Systems, which is the rec track, the registration software, and it's not even half,
It's half.
is it half now of the Bamboo software, which is, it's an HR software that we onboard, do all of our part-time employees' paperwork, their timesheets, everything, all in one spot. And it helps us track our employees, update pay rates in it. I'm going to let Kelly talk because she's been the
Sure,
main
so,
user of this.
It basically is our HR, right? So anytime we're onboarding new employees, they get all of their new employee paperwork through the software. Anytime we're offboarding people, and we have to terminate and keep track of start dates and end dates and all of that. What is really exciting for us about Bamboo is that we will be able to do time tracking, and people will be able to do their payroll right through the app, so that just gets sent digitally to their manager, and they're able to get paid that way, as opposed to having 8,000 pieces of paper handwritten timesheets that sometimes get lost or misplaced or not approved in time, or approved and sitting on someone's desk. So that software is new for us. It averages about $1,500 a month in the high months. It's probably around $700 a month because it's a per employee software. So we do our best to inactivate everybody who is not currently on our payroll during the season that we're in, to reduce costs. Our programming staff is really good about making sure that it's only the people who are active, because we only pay for active employees each month, to reduce that cost. But the reality of it is there is a cost to it. And it has been really helpful for our staff. It's been great for onboarding our new employees. Oftentimes, we are hiring some high school kids who come in and ask all kinds of questions about all of the paperwork you have to fill out when you're first hired at your first job. And at this point, I take it for granted because I've done it a few times, right? But to be able to give it to them online, and they can talk with their parents and figure out what they want to do, and they can do it in the privacy of their own home and make decisions together. That's a great opportunity for them. It reduces, obviously, paper waste. We were giving 2, sometimes 3 of these application packets, new hire packets, to some of our summer staff who might lose them in transit or whatever. It's all right there. It's been really helpful as far as our finance clerk is concerned. We recently brought on all of the fitness instructors to utilize the time tracking software to test it out. And she just downloads all of them into an Excel sheet and calls it a day for the fitness instructors. Everyone else is still doing paper sheets, but moving forward in the next month or so, we are planning on bringing all of our part-time staff on board that way, so that it's an easier transition for her. Right now, she has to take a paper copy, put it into an Excel sheet, then put it onto another file, then send that over to town hall. This completely eliminates 1.5 of those steps, and just able to transition from that Excel sheet right to the paper that goes to town hall. So there isn't, I did payroll a couple weeks ago when some people were on, I transposed some numbers or it's not an easy thing, and having multiple steps with the same numbers doesn't necessarily make sense. So That's
No,
why,
that's
that's
good
why we need the
explanation.
software.
Well, I say that because, you know, we're gonna get asked that down the road.
100%.
So, you know, I just wanna,
Yep.
know exactly how the whole system
And
works.
this-
Thank you for that
This
explanation.
represents only half of the cost of Bamboo is in the budget, so whatever. I'm really bad at math in my head, Dave, so I'm
No,
gonna
that's fine.
apologize.
No, I just
Whatever
want- I
the
just wanted-
13,000
8400
That was a good
was-
explanation, and, thank you, Mr.
You all
Chairman.
set there? Other question from Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the only thing that jumped out at me on the budget was, looks like over $1,000 in the increase in cell phone service for the maintenance portion.
Brendan?
Sorry, I'm just gonna flip to
It's the very last page.
the last page.
Yeah.
And cellular phone service.
Right before the dumpster install.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So we have more people with cell phones, in the rates have gone up on cell phones at all. This could drop, we could wind up with money left on that line at the end of next year. They're talking about switching to AT&T, FirstNet, whatever it's called. So there could be a reduction in cost there, but we have to plan for those costs to go up. But
Does this get peanut buttered with other phones that might be in the town, or do you have to have?
yeah,
them
they're all,
separate
they're all in one
Okay.
plan. And then when they mail out the bills, you know, it's a PDF. So you have to scroll to your department and, you know, pay your share. But it's usually broken down on an Excel sheet. But, excuse me, you want to go through and look and see, you know,
Yeah.
what each device is. Plus, we have, this covers all of our, we have how many tablets now do we have with 6? I think we have 6 tablets that have data on them. So out in our programs, they can get updated rosters, things like that. They can communicate. And we have 4 wireless hotspots as well that we use at events. You have to leave them active for 4 months at a time or 6 months, and then you can't have them not active for more than 3 months or something. There's certain rules. So, but we've wound up using tablets throughout the year because some of our programs are hybrid, some of our fitness programs. So we're able to keep those active, and, you know, we're not trying to re-up monthly for certain devices, so.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman. I would just note that, you know, I'm experimenting with all sorts of recreation programs. I did go to my first Zumba class last week, and the instructor did have a tablet in front of her that was for the remote folks that were there, in addition to the many folks that were there in person. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Interesting. Very good. Mr. Foss?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Egan, you mentioned you're gonna have to meet with the town next Thursday, and they're gonna ask you to cut another .35, is that right?
Well, I'm hoping not. I think that as recently as an hour before this meeting, I gave them where I was at, and you know, it is higher than the 3.75, but you know, they understand we have to have some increases in
Right,
order for
right.
the services.
So are we hoping that overall, all the budgets combined are at 375?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just because it seems like we're already cut to the bone, and to ask to, like, I was just trying to do quick calculations. My math is not great in my head either, but it'd be
Okay.
like another $7,000 or so. I
Mhm.
don't know where it's gonna come from. I'm hoping that they're reasonable and can,
I think so. You know, seeing that we started at 577, and I think a lot of people were well over, there's, from what I understand, over like 5. But some of those departments, as I mentioned, you know, a $2,000 raise in their budget is, you know, is significant and looks like a big increase, but it's really, in the grand scheme of things, you know, smaller dollars. When I say grand scheme of things, the overall town budget in the tens of millions. So I think we're probably in a good place. You know, if we were in the 4.1 to 4.2 range, but once we start creeping over 4.2, so I think we might, get some pushback there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Looking at the big picture, the 3.75% guideline is going to be difficult for any department to hit, in my view, because town meeting approved these contractual increases. And when you look at our full-time salaries, that approval by town meeting resulted in a 4.48% increase. It's not that we hired anybody new. They're entitled to raises, and town meeting approved the raises. And if you look at the overall total salary increase of 4.72%, again, that appears to me to be the result of the town meeting's action approving the raises to the various contracts. So we're already over the 3.75 by almost a full point. So now we've got to go in and dig into programming and dig into melt and materials and other things like that to get down to a 3.75% guideline. I don't think it's that realistic. And I know all the departments are probably struggling with this, but I don't think we should go below 4.1, in my opinion, and I don't think we should be pulling things out like professional development. I think that's very important. So my take on the budget is I would hold firm on 4.1. This town, I mean, we're gonna cut out 10 grand or whatever Carl's math was to get down to 3.75. This town has $10,000 to say, go ahead and keep your programming going. So that would be my 2 cents on the budget. I think you did a good job, both of you, putting going through all of this and line by line, trying to come up with some savings. I think that I would leave it up to your discretion to, as you've already done, to do your best to pare it down. We're almost there, not quite, but I think that we should hold firm at 4.1. That's my thought. So I'm not sure if anybody wants to make any motions tonight to change it, pare it down, add to it. It's up to the will of the commission, obviously. Kevin?
Just more discussion I just don't want to cut services. I don't think we should be cutting services, especially because a bunch of it is to the disabled. I don't think we should be cutting services. I'd like to keep that part-time number the same and incorporate the computer fees, which is great software. RecTrack is awesome. It just saves time and it's so much more professional. But I think that should go into the revolving to keep our services the same.
Do you want to make a motion?
Well, that's my opinion. You're the staff. I don't want to vote something that you don't want.
Okay, well, I think we've beat this to death and to some extent. You've heard the commissioner's comments. Hopefully we can find a way to make sure we don't cut any programming. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the modified budget presented tonight in the amount of, I got it upside down here, the amount of $2,105,611, which represents a 4.10% increase?
Make that motion.
Mr. Norton, thank you.
Be-
It's got to be seconded first.
I'll second.
Mr. Foss seconded. Kevin?
Can we have discussion?
Absolutely. It's a motion on the
Okay.
floor.
Brendan and Kelly are looking.
So you're saying, essentially, you're saying you'd like to level fund the part-time account to 236, whatever it was last year,
236,454.
right?
I
that what you're
wanna-
looking
I want to
for?
keep the $6,000 such that you don't cut any programming.
So we don't cut programming. Okay.
If that means moving something into revolving as an expense, in coming out with the same 4.1%, and it's pretty hard to do with
Where's the 6, Kevin?
Yeah.
That's the number you mentioned.
Yeah, the 6,200 is the difference between, in the original budget that was presented with the 5.77 increase and the part-time number and,
Yeah, there it is.
the part-time number in the budget that was presented with 4.1%, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, so,
You don't have, so.
Yeah,
we
we
don't have
can-
to vote
we
on
can-
this
we can-
tonight.
So, you're not necessarily tied to a number then, right? So if we look at whatever the cost is to increase the TR programming back to its level before, whatever that amount is that what you're looking for? Like, you're not tied to 6,200, is my question for you. Like, I know you've said you
That-
don't wanna cut programming, right? So like, that's
Right.
realistically like what we're doing as far as cutting programming is concerned. Physically cutting programs saying we're not having it. The rest of them are like either reduced in like the max number of participants or looking at how we might have to creatively, maybe work to add a program in, maybe through the revolving account. We've looked at a number of different ways, but I just wanna make sure I understand the end goal is to not cut the programs themselves. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Specifically TR. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanna make sure that's gonna cover the cost of not reducing the TR line.
Mm-hmm. Because once you get that money, you can't lose it, where we can get money from, like you said, the revolving account to cover something else, right? At least this number's, we're not cutting anything, right?
We're
Well,
cutting
he's
with
keeping
this,
it at 4.1. He wants,
Right.
But
but-
we're cutting things.
we
in
gotta
order to
take
go
another
down to
6
four.
out. You
Right.
wanna take 6 out of the
So they'd have to find
contracted
6 somewhere
services,
else.
Kevin? Is that what you're suggesting?
Sure,
And take that out of revolving?
right.
Is that a,
Whether
is that a
it
dangerous
means-
precedent?
Whether it means, you have to charge $1 more a program, in how many transactions are there in a year?
Probably 5,200 or so. But I know, just looking at,
Brenda, what are your thoughts?
we may have identified an area, does that work?
Yeah, it works.
All right, so we can make a, we can, make a, reduction in, our internships. We plan on 3 total. We already have 2 committed, for this summer. So we can cut that back, and make sure we, add it back into our therapeutic rec, so we don't have to cut services there. So we'll take a reduction there, and then we'll take it out of contract services shift, right? Is that what we're talking?
No, if we.
Change- if we reduce this,
if we
yes.
reduce by 1 intern, and I wanna
Sorry.
be clear about what this intern does, right? So they are our marketing person for the summer. They are responsible for all of our social media, that, it will be impactful. It's not programming, but it's impactful. It'll put more responsibilities onto our program directors and our full-time staff. So we'll reduce by that 1 marketing intern, and we will be able to add the 5 weeks back into the TR programming.
And we'll stay at
And we'll stay at
4.1.
4.1.
Okay, from a mechanical standpoint, I mean, now we're putting the part-time dollar figure back where it was before, right?
It's a little less.
Yeah,
actually.
$1,000
Yeah.
less.
Okay.
But yes, it'll be close to level funded at that
So I guess if we're gonna
236
vote tonight on this budget, somebody's gonna have to make a very detailed motion as to what we're voting on.
But just keep on,
All
and
right, so,
I know it's wicked hard to do this without
Yeah.
in doing it in front of your computer. So,
Sure.
because it does all the numbers.
what, did you,
But we had $40,000 proposed revolving account expenditure a couple of months ago that we didn't approve.
Mhm.
Can we take 6,000 out of that revolving now to put into part-time?
Well, it wouldn't be until next fiscal year anyway, so,
but we could reserve it for,
Well, my response to that, Kevin, is the town should be paying the salaries. It shouldn't be coming,
Well,
you know
to,
what I'm saying?
to be fully transparent, the town pays half of this person's salary, and the revolving account already pays for the
The
other
other half.
Yeah.
So like, this is not, it's not a full salary situation. When we're talking about part-time salaries in general, none of them are fully paid by the town, except for our part-time rec therapist. All the rest of them are paid at a 50-50 split between the revolving account already and the part-time fund themselves. Especially, looking at the therapeutic recreation division specifically, that one is, like I said, the part-time rec therapist, which we're hoping to be able to fill sooner rather than later, and all of the TR staff salaries is only paid for by 50% of the town. The program fees pick up the rest. So there already is cost built into it. And it is something we can do and look at, but it's only half, like, we then would be paying the full
The full.
$10,400 for that employee. Like, it's not just another whatever, it's the full amount at that point. And we can certainly look in, maybe, in April or May, when we get the next revolving account report, we can look at that, as a designation and just setting that money aside. But, I mean, we can look at it, and knowing that we need to do that, look at how we're setting our summer fees, because spring fees are already set. So how we're looking at setting our summer fees, because that's really where we would be able to draw the most money in to be able to effectively cover all of our costs.
Brendan, do we need to table this until, meeting
I
at the end of
think-
February to put a new budget together?
I think we can make those changes. If I don't know, we're kind of in a, I've never experienced this in the 9 years here, so, of, approving a bottom line number of no less than, or no more than, no less than
Yeah, I'm not-
4.1,
not
you know
a
what
big
I'm saying?
fan of doing that.
Uh,
I'm not
yeah.
a big fan of doing that
Um,
either. Is there
I-
any time problem if we put this off until our February 27th? or
In
16th?
Ways and Means, getting that calendar moving in those meetings, having all the budgets, like I said, were due, that's, when they started looking at them, this week, now that they're all in, we were one of the last ones in as we, tried to work with the guidelines and come in without a huge increase. You think we'll be able to do that with what we just talked about, the internships and, yeah.
It'll be at 4.1 or below.
Yeah, so I think you could approve this
I
budget.
guess the motion would be slightly modified to approve the FY 2024 budget in the amount of $2,105,611, with the caveat that the part-time salary line item on page 1 of the budget is going to be increased by $6,000. And in some other section of the budget, there's going to be a $6,000 reduction?
It's not
Fif-
6,000.
5,200?
It's.
Or- Okay, that's going to affect the bottom line then.
Minus this,
Get your calculator out.
sorry.
so, can.
Yep.
Can I be clear? I don't wanna eliminate the marketing person either. That's important. I am saying that.
So now you
whole
see
budget
why
over
the
tonight.
annual report got put aside.
I am saying that whatever money we need to get, to keep our level services, that amount be shifted in the computer budget into the revolving account.
So out of the
That would be,
contracted services on the recreation portion of the budget would be reduced by,
Well, we did 13.1 minus the 47.
if we have to go 5,200 more there, the computer would be reduced by
Is
5,200.
that somewhere? Oh, on this one. This is yours.
yes,
Sorry, I was getting confused.
That's the software stuff.
If we,
yeah.
If we looked at bamboo and paid for a
Software
quarter
maintenance.
this year and then increased it to a half next
Okay.
year, we should be able to cover that cost.
Okay, so what are we reducing that by?
So that would be,
Oh, I'm not saying reduce the cost, I'm saying pick it up.
W-
under
Right,
software.
I'm talking about reducing that line in the contracted services for the software.
minus the
Contracted
4,700
service.
Oh, yeah,
is the
here we go.
It's 13,000, so it's like a 7,000.
plus the
So
47.
he wants to pull
9,000.
6 out of that?
Yeah,
Reducing it to that number?
and then,
Okay, so,
like I said, you can add $1.
looking at,
Sorry.
looking at, taking into consideration what Kevin has suggested, if we reduce our, in the contracted services, in the recreation director expenses, from 13,100 down to 8,900, we will be able to, continue the part-time at its,
The
current rate, and we wouldn't cut any services. We'd have that other marketing intern this summer, so
13,1 down to what?
8,900.
8,900.
89?
And then the part-time.
And how does that affect the new total? The 2105 is gonna change, right?
Sure is.
You got a calculator?
We're gonna come out with the same dollar amount in the end.
Well, no, they didn't take an even 6 off of this. They only reduced
Are you
it.
doing it? I'm not gonna start it if you're on it.
It's like
I got
4,300.
you. She's in the middle of it. Thank you.
Then
I
we have
can't
to
do it, I
add
don't
the,
even know how to add 6 plus 6.
we could,
It's like making sausage here tonight.
Steve, you run long meetings.
Yeah, it's your fault.
so the part-time line would then go to, sorry, my thumb doesn't always work. Two thirty-three, 926,
233,
926,
926.
which would few six.
It shouldn't.
I'm
it
bad
should-
with numbers on the spot.
If we take 4,200 out of contracted services and put it into part-time, the
Right.
4.1 number stays the same.
Correct.
It does.
It does.
We don't need the full 4,200 was my point.
You were trying to get it down
I was
to a
trying to get
penny.
it to exact what you.
Let's say
would-
4,200 from contracted services, and we'll add that to the part-time, which
So-
is what you're saying.
We can vote on.
And that's gonna be enough to keep the part-time position that Kevin's concerned about?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, and it'll be a
Okay,
4.1.
so that's a net 0
Yep,
change in the bottom line.
correct.
Okay. Nice job, Kelly.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Okay,
Think you
so
have
the
a
motion that's on the floor is to approve the FY '24 budget in the amount of $2,105,611, which represents a 4.10 increase with the modifications discussed tonight to contracted services in the part-time salary account. Is there a second?
Second.
Actually, Dave, you made that motion, and Bill, you seconded. Okay, any further discussion on the budget? Thankfully, no. Oh, now, put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and that's unanimous. All right.
Thank you for
Thank you all.
working through that
Thank
and
you all.
asking the questions. We appreciate it.
It's a good exercise. So the next item on our agenda this evening is the appointment of the Assistant Program Coordinator candidate. Director Regan.
Yes, thank you. We have completed our interviews for the Assistant Program Coordinator position and have selected Jeff DeSalvo to fill the position. Jeff is a graduate of the University of New Hampshire and is currently the Recreation Program Director for the City of Nashua. He's worked for the city for the last 5 years. He was promoted into the position, so he has moved up through the department. And he previously worked for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Salem, New Hampshire. We are excited to have Jeff join the team and look forward to him getting started. It looks like the end of this month will be his start date. So I would like to request the commission vote to appoint Jeff DeSalvo to the position of Assistant Program Coordinator effective February 26th, 2023.
Is there a motion?
I'm sorry, February 27th, sorry, before you make that motion.
I make that motion.
It's been moved, and is there a second? Moved and seconded by Mr. Gaffney to appoint Jeff DeSalvo to fill the position of the Assistant Program Coordinator. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll put that to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, and that's unanimous. All right. Congratulations, Jeff.
Well, I'll ask him to come to a future meeting after he gets settled, just so everyone gets to meet him.
Be nice to meet him. All right, next item on our agenda is the order of business for commission meetings, second reading. I thought I had it somewhere in my package. Do you have extra copies by any chance, Brendan? I printed it up tonight, and I don't know where it was.
Yep. So,
Thanks.
are you ready?
I am
So
ready.
we had this on the agenda at the last meeting, but not everyone was here. We have a full group tonight, so the changes are highlighted in red in here. Did you guys, when they were the same, sorry, they were the same from the last meeting. And I'll read the changes that were proposed back in November, I believe it was, or even October. So in the order of business for commission meetings, the first change was the Pledge of Allegiance was inserted at number 2. And then under the Director of Parks and Recreation report, we added the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation report. The Park Superintendent report was deleted. We also added at number 11, Executive Session. And then number 12, we added, it said Agenda, and it was meant to say Agenda for the next meeting, so for next meeting was added. In the paragraph below, we have the Director of Parks and Recreation and Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation are required to submit written reports for each regular commission meeting. The Director of Parks and Recreation and Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation are required to attend all commission meetings or be represented by another staff member. So the areas that say Director of Parks and Recreation and Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation were both, they were added as new, so they are in red. And then in 3.7, we have the Director of Parks and Recreation and the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation will summarize their report at meetings and be prepared to answer questions on their reports. So the words Director of Parks and Recreation, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation were added, and then summarize was added because the reports are received in advance, and we all decided that it was nice to hear the reports summarized, even though you receive them beforehand. And then the word "and" was put in there, and be prepared to answer questions on their reports. So this is our second reading on this. The changes were, no one had additional changes. I think we made one edit, as I mentioned, up in the order of business to add for next meeting after the agenda.
Okay, it is the second reading. Is there a motion to approve the new agenda for all of our meetings going forward?
I make the motion. Second.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Foss to approve the agenda new agenda as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll put that to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you, Brendan.
Okay, so just for our next meeting, which is the 27th, I'll have to have a report to you on the 20th?
Well, it's a school vacation week, so I think we can give you a little leeway there, you and Kelly.
All right. Breaking it already,
Yeah.
Steve. All right, so, sorry.
Next item is old business. Are there any items of old business tonight that anyone would like to bring forward?
I have one item, Bill, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it. I did. It was regarding the pickleball up at Blue Sky Drive. At our last meeting, we discussed the Nordblum company was coming before for a minor change, I think, to talk about one pickleball court in their center campus. We had put a proposal forward to add a number of pickleball courts at some point in the parking lot. I did talk with Planning Director Liz, I'm going to butcher the last, Bonaventre, right? Am I close?
Yeah, close.
All right. I always butcher it, so she knows. So regarding the pickleball courts, and at this time, it's not, something they want to add the pickleball courts to the property, other than the one they were looking for in the center of campus. But I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that. You were there for the discussion.
Sure, thank you, through the chair.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Mr.
so,
Gadd.
so it was a good meeting. Clearly, the applicant was not familiar with the game nor an enthusiast of it, so, understanding having one court there. So I said, you may want to go back and talk to people that are familiar with it and understand that even just for the folks that are on campus that would use it, multiple courts is probably the way to go there. But yeah, they didn't seem interested in adding to that, but they said they would certainly look, not on that particular property, but more throughout the larger property for an opportunity to add courts. I think they do get the idea that it will be beneficial to them and the property. I said at Third Ave with Lifetime, kind of joining together with that would really be something beneficial. Again, not a lot of enthusiasm, but again, the communication continues to happen. So if they come before us for the 4 new buildings and 2 more parking garages, we'll look to have them either that or maybe in kind. So if you think about it, putting together 8 courts would be somewhat familiar with the cost of the basketball courts, right? So what that costs is, $200,
Yeah, we're at
190?
230.
right?
Something.
So maybe, they're, instead of being on their property, maybe they put something in kind, and then we try to find a place without residents around
Yeah.
to do that, so.
Good. Thank you for that update.
Thank
Good
you, Mr.
discussion.
Chairman.
Breaking the ice, Bill.
Right.
Yeah, very good job. Any other items of old business tonight?
No.
Okay. We do not need an executive session, but we do have on our new agenda, the agenda for our next meeting. Is there any, obviously, we're going to meet on is it the 26th that we?
27th, Monday the 27th.
Monday, the 27th is our next meeting. Of course, we're going to be talking about capital budget items. Any other members have anything specific they'd like to see on the next agenda? Okay, we'll leave that up to you, Brendan.
Oh, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
You do it anyway, so we'll leave that up to you. Any other items this evening we need to discuss? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, can I make that?
Yes, you may.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.